my goodness. Oh, we're both rocking the glass.
What? Because, blue blocking is a thing because we want to save these eyeballs.
That's exactly right. It's so exciting. So I see some friends are on.
It's normal. And obviously, it's never been at a global scale the way that it is right now. But I've had to learn to ground in my truth and my sense of safety from within, because as an entrepreneur, like the shifts going on are constant. Like whether Facebook changes the algorithm, or maybe a client you weren't expecting drops off, or whatever that roller coaster is very real. So I feel at a very blessed advantage in a way to have developed these skills. And I feel like having these conversations is really important. And I'm not saying it as I'm showing off or like tooting my own horn, but it's a skill set that takes practice, and you have to stay committed to you and your self-care and your truth in order to really navigate it very effectively.
Ooh, and that's like right there, self-care. Is I think something that perhaps some of us are struggling with, because we're either like my experience based on the feedback and the memes, because let's be real, memes are speaking to us as a language. Raise your hands or drop some hearts if memes are really resonating with where you are in the state of navigating this emotional sphere. But my experience is that people are either super self-indulging, which is not necessarily self-care,
right,
or they are super in overdrive, like what do I do, like going. And my experience is that there's like no sense of like boundaries for what is the right place to operate from this unknown from, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Let us know, y'all. We're here for you and we're having this conversation, but I also want to hear from you if this resonates. Like, where can we support you as this conversation flows? Go ahead.
Yeah, and really answering your questions, right? We want this to be a dialogue. Like, of course, she and I are talking, but we want to bring you into the conversation. So you have comments, you have feedback, anything that's going on. Maybe it's something that's going on for someone outside of yourself, right? Like maybe it's not something that you're going through, but maybe you're noticing a family member or a friend going through something. And if you want to kind of mention that without mentioning their names and just get some support with that, absolutely. Going back to what you said about self-care, like indulgence versus like numbing out doing, and where do you navigate that? And for me and my definition, and we can like share our views on this, is self-care, right? Because self-care is so personal. It's like a thumbprint, right? Like there's no defining like what self-care looks like for one individual person. But I'll tell you, for me, it's quiet time. It's listening to what needs to happen. Is waking up before I get out of bed and really breathing gratitude for another day. Whatever's going on outside, like that's outside of my control, but I can be grateful for that moment of acknowledgement. Like I get to wake up, I have one more day, and I'm just going to acknowledge that, and then set the intentions, put my feet on the ground. And that's about as far as it gets. And sometimes that's all there is. But really identifying the little pieces. And I feel like right now a big opportunity is to listen to that. Like maybe today is, I woke up today, for example, just really feeling in my usual go, go, go mode. And I posted about it. I'm like, you know what? It started to feel like I wanted to get on the grind again. I wanted to like go and do, and something fell off because I wasn't honoring the quietude. Like when I actually dropped down and I felt that peaceful presence that was with me, that I was ignoring because I wanted to go into my headspace and think about what the next thing needed to be. And then like something, like I could feel that friction, like, okay, I'm trying to push against something here and this isn't feeling right. And taking that step back and be like, okay, I'm going to turn everything off. I'm going to breathe. And I was sipping my cacao, which if you've been following me, you know that's my jam. And sipping on it and just started dropping into my heart and just really feeling that heart space. And for me, it's like this silence that feels like this big hug from the outside that just feels like love. It feels like this tingly awesomeness that just kind of showers me and lets me know like, hey, I'm here. You're not alone. We've got this. Can you breathe into this? Can you slow down? Can you let me nurture you? That's the invitation that was there at that moment. And had I not tapped into that, being like, I need to slow down and I need to be with this energy right now, I would have ran myself ragged. And it's amazing how dropping into that silence, like for example, today for me, allow this next thing to show up all on its own without my efforting, without my energy, without me having to do anything. This next thing shows up. This next thing shows up. I got on a call with my mastermind group. I got the medicine that I needed. And it was just then this beautiful sequential thing that I didn't have to do. I just had to drop down and be and allow the energy, that flow to carry me to this moment where we are right now having this beautiful conversation.
And you know what I love about this is like, so for those of you who are popping in afterwards, like, because Erica was in like a beautiful flow state, this is my first spirit talk on Sundays, because I'm all about like, you know, connecting to spirituality and seeing where it leads us. Like, let's talk about like, what is spirit telling us? What does spirit tell us? And we're all going to have a different definition of spirit and spirituality. And that's not what I'm here to do. It's like, what is the spirit saying? And that's, I feel like exactly like when you were saying that, that's what came up through me. There's a difference between what your brain, your human meat suit operator tells you to do, than what your spirit flows you into creating. So your brain was like, let's do all the things. And then all of a sudden you had a moment where you connected with your self-care, which for you was your ritual of your cacao, and you connected to your heart center, which is for what a lot of people believe to be where maybe more of the spirit resides, to allow that to flow and create for you rather than being in your human meat suit operator, which I'm going to use these crazy words because I also love words, but if you know my spellings. Yeah, this is such a beautiful first installment for this because I think it is definitely like reminding us. Like, so the question I want to throw out to the audience is that as you heard Erica talk about leaving this operator and tapping into this operator, the spirit talk, what is spirit telling you in these times? What has spirit been telling you that you have been ignoring? Because I think if we really tap into the global conversation is, and you know, I'm gonna be honest here, y'all. I love conspiracy theories. I am a reformed and recovered conspiracy theory, and I know all the things. However, there is a collective conversation about we all sourced a moment of pause. And spirit is telling us, what did I pause you for? And what are you still not pausing for? So I'm really curious to hear, because I love my audience and I know they talk. So what did spirit pause you for? And what have you paused and listened to? And what are you still not listening to? How can we support you with the pause?
I'm going to like bring it back one notch, right?
Okay.
And it's like, what does that nudge feel like for you, right? Because sometimes we don't know. It's kind of like, what are they even talking about? We all have experienced it, whether it's like that moment, that split second that you're like, yeah, I need to pump my brakes right now, and I don't know why, and you saw that crazy car flying past you. Those little instances where you felt that unknown kind of tap you in the shoulder and call you. So I think a lot of us don't know how to define that. And maybe if you can verbalize that in a way, like for me, it's like having my morning ritual is sacred, right? Like that's a space that I give my higher self permission to come in and be like, hey, Erica, what's up, girl? Haven't talked, you know, like I love this time that we spent together. What should we do or not do today? Where do we need to be? How does this need to feel? Right? Because listen to your intuition, because at the end of the day, it's speaking all the time. And it's a muscle that we need to train. And for a lot of us, it's always there, but we don't know how to hear it or how to feel it or how to see it, because we all gifted in different ways. So I'm going to kind of like pull it back to like the fundamentals. What does that feel like for you, right? Like just open up that conversation for the audience, and even for you, babe, if you want to chime in, what does that feel like when that intuition is coming in? How do you set up that space to then have that response? I love that. Don't second guess yourself. Yeah, the morning ritual. Yes. Pause to heal. Oh, I love these answers. Keep them coming. Babe, you want to like chime in and say
Yeah.
anything?
So it's so funny because everyone's talking about tapping into their intuition with a pause, and I can't help but think that. So I'm way into astrology, and my moon is Taurus. So like my natural state is to pause, and what I'm feeling right now is my intuition is saying you get to move because you have been so inactive, that the pause for me is a call to move because I have the space to move now, where before I didn't have the space to move. And so that's what comes up for me with the pause. The pause, spirit is telling me you get to pause so you can move in the direction you really have been, that your North Star, which I got tattooed purposely,
Yeah.
space, has been calling you to move forward towards. And then like, so I love that everyone's got these responses, because at the end of the day, this is all, where is spirit moving you? So we've got some people that spirit says, you got paused. Your intuition is telling you got paused because you need to heal, or because you need to trust. Don't second guess yourself. To me is the word trust. You get to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's so, and I want to go back, and I would love to hear more about what you were saying about the collective pause that we have brought in. Right? Because this isn't happening to just one person. This is happening at a global scale. And I believe that we all orchestrated this, that we all somehow collectively manifested this. And I'm with you. The conspiracy theories are everywhere.
There's
and
so
if
many
you're
variations.
and they all start tying together. And you know what? At the end of the day, I choose to stay in my peace. And if any of those theories start making me feel really agitated or trigger me or something like that, not to turn a blind eye and ignore, but to self-protect. Like, a lot of the conversation has been about personal, mental, and spiritual self-preservation. For the first time in a long time, we are globally dealing with the same issue, bringing us together. Absolutely. And
Reflection fresca. Love it.
however you're coming in with it, like really understanding that whether you believe in the conspiracy or not, the thing is, what's in front of us right now is this pause. And what you choose to do with that pause is really the thing, because we can easily go back to the woulda, shoulda, coulda, and stay in that conversation forever about what could have happened to prevent it and how we could have done things differently. The opportunity is, we're here now, and what do we want going forward? Because that's healing.
I love it. And so Tani says, I choose to stay my peace. So based on what you're saying, based on what the response is, it's almost like we've collectively sourced this, and we get to also, so collectively, as a collective, we also get to say, what happens after this? What's next? And it's funny because Fresca says, for the first time in a long time, we're globally dealing with this, right? And so I can't help but think that I mentioned this somewhere else, that the last time I felt like this, and I'm seeing a pattern, right? I'm seeing a pattern that at 9/11 we had this was the last time we had this level of a collective pause was 9/11. I was finishing college. I was starting my last year of college, and I just finished a study abroad in Spain. I was like, all these ideas, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And then 9/11 happened, and I got into a career that I didn't want. And I was in that career for over a decade, almost 2. And so all of a sudden, I finished my master's in August. I went to San Diego for leadership. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And the coronavirus hits, and I'm like, what is this pattern happening again? And I choose to say, so like you said, and Tani reflected, Rainbow Bright, I get to choose to say my piece. I get to not, like, I feel like the universe, like for me, I think we're all getting like, we're collectively paused. We're all getting our personal lesson. My personal lesson for me was, are you going to choose what you want? Again, are you going to stay in your peace and choose what's really in your heart? Or are you going to feed the fear and do what's safe because that's what you think needs to happen?
Yes. For all of you joining us, we're having Spirit Talk. This is basically just tapping into like a bigger conversation, kind of moving it to your personal space, right? Because it's easy to get caught up in the tangents of the media and what's being presented, and all the other conversations and the conspiracies and everything that's stealing your peace. And how do you bring it back to the pause, following your intuition? What do you need to do for yourself? Tapping into that self-care and moving from a place of feeling fully nurtured to then step in and do what you have to do or continue taking that pause, because there is no right answer right now.
There is no right answer. There is no so I would even like to say there's no right or wrong answer right now, because it's not about right or wrong. It is about, we have continued to make choices, and we get to make a choice. And so if you know about me in spelling, so I'm Elena Pampletta for those who are new, and I love words. And so people, we have been making decisions. Decisions come from the root word, the suffix. I don't know if you guys know, but decisions has a suffix that is the same as suicide, patricide, homicide. So when we make a decision as a collective, we kill off options. When we make choices, that comes from a root word that means to taste. So we get to say, you know what, I tasted that before, I didn't like it. Because you don't ever just taste it. Like, have you ever been to an ice cream shop? Like, they're like, what do you want to taste? And you get to taste them all, and then you get to make a decision or make a choice. And then when you go back, you don't have to do the same one again. You don't have to make the same selection again. So we get to say, do we want to go back to the paradigm, or can we as a collective learn what we've experienced and try something new when this is over? Too easy. We have a choice. It's a fresh start. So
fresh.
So like you said, you get to choose to stay in your peace, and we get to decide what start do we get. Spirit is moving us in a beautiful conversation. How are you feeling? How's everyone out there doing?
Feeling. Now I have Lizzo in my head. You see how that happened?
That's my favorite.
Yeah. And here's here in Choose. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Alex Gray. If you're familiar with his work, he paints spiritual concepts that are hard to describe verbally, but because he's a visual artist, he makes it really easy. And he did this live yesterday. I think you can probably still catch it.
He's Mormon, right? Or he does.
He does all this psychedelic kind of thing, and it's gorgeous. If you're familiar with the band Tool, he's done a lot of work with them and just try to illustrate that higher consciousness. He did a live yesterday, basically unveiling his latest piece, and it's this beautiful splitting off of this one being pulled in two directions. And I want to bring that visual in because that's what's happening. We're at a fork in the road in the collective. Okay, I want you to think about how you get to choose right now, speaking of the spellings, right? You get to either spiral upwards right now into that higher level that has always been there for us, but we get to make a different choice right now. Or you get to go down the spiral of the same old, and you choose to not have anything change in your life. And your free will allows for both of those choices. However,
I love it.
Bringing in this deeper conversation as to what do you choose? How is spirit nudging you? How does that feel in your body? How is that conversation being started in your own sphere? And how are you then choosing to nurture yourself? Maybe this is just for you and that's fine. Or maybe choosing to then step in and help people find that for themselves as well.
Right. And you know what comes up, and I love how we're peeling the layers and the layers and really digging deep into this, because what you said between the Alex Gray work, which is super trippy and amazing, but what you said actually resonated with something else that I learned. So if you all know Teal Scott, so when I actually had the privilege of spending a day with her one day, and she's the one who kind of she gave me another visual for y'all to think about, which I think directly goes into the Alex Gray piece, because she said, y'all think that free will and predestiny is separate, and it is not. We all have written kind of the different, it's life is like a choose your own adventure book, and we've written these different outcomes. And so sometimes we're on one of the pages or one of the trajectories, and we're I don't know if I feel like I'm really going down. Let me go back to page 44 and see what other options there were, and see if so we have to give ourselves permission to change tracks if the track isn't working for us. And so what I'm hearing, Erica, is that we as a collective perhaps sourced the opportunity to change tracks in the game of life, in the choose your own adventure story of life. And now we have to say, is everyone on board? Or are enough of us on board to switch tracks so that we can create a new earth, so we can create a new destiny, so we can create better choices for us?
Yeah. And even within that conversation, like the reminder that we're still in this human experience and there's still going to be duality. Like we're not going to escape that as long as we're in these meat suits that you're saying, right? So also understanding that contrast is necessary. Like we need the contrast, like that is not going to go. However, you get to choose on which side of that construct you want to play in.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like this bigger dialogue of spirit playing itself and pretending to be Alona and pretending to be Erica and pretending to be every one of you listening and everyone outside this sphere. So it's very delicate, and it's a conversation that if you have a relationship with spirit, it's going to be easier for you to navigate. And if you don't, this is a great invitation. And you can say no. You can be like, I'm not interested. And it's all good. And you can be like, you know what? I'm going to take this pause and I'm going to dive deeper into my intuition, into developing how am I hearing right now? What does this feel like? What do I want to converse with? How do I want to navigate? How do I want to flow with this, right? Because me as a woman, I feel everything right now. I feel like as an intuitive, I'm so open to like feeling so many things right now. And it's the subtlety. Like, I was walking my dog this morning and I'm walking and I'm noticing the flowers are blooming, right? And I'm having these soulful moments with these blooms. And I feel like Georgia O'Keeffe. And suddenly I kind of got like, why you want to dedicate such a big canvas for such a small piece of reality, because it's so sacred and there's so much detail in that one little flower. It almost took my breath away. It just felt like this romance that was happening for like a split second. And those are the moments that we're being invited to witness with the flower outside, with the dog, with your loved ones, with your lover, with your cup of tea, with whatever it is that your experience is deepening that. And what would that look like for you if that were like your normal all the time? If we go back or we move forward into kind of a little bit more of the rhythm that we're used to being in, but coming into that with this higher sense of connection, that tuned in piece a little sharper, where maybe you're doing the same work you were doing before, but with this higher level of presence and deeper intention every single step that you take. Like that would be fantastic.
So I'm almost hearing like, what are you all doing to connect to spirit, to get into this flow, to get into this connection with yourself as we as a collective shift into the choice as a collective to what comes next? So I'd love to hear from everyone out there. So Erica, can you share with us, like, so we know, well, actually not everyone knows you. So like
No.
one of your connections is your cacao, right? You said like you love your morning cacao. So
I love it.
So how do you guide yourself through connecting to spirit as we navigate these times? And I'd love to hear from people who maybe are having difficulty connecting to spirit in this time, so we can support you in this process.
Absolutely. And as I'm talking, this might be like triggering ideas and like, oh yeah, that feels that way for me too. Like chime into the comments.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've developed my little rituals, over time. Like it didn't happen overnight. I don't drink coffee, so cacao is my thing. Every morning I kind of have a cup. It kind of sets the tone for my morning. It's my meditation. Everything's quiet. I'm enjoying being with my cup. I'm feeling the warmth. I'm feeling the size of the cup. I'm feeling the smell of it. I'm feeling the temperature. I'm feeling how it's nourishing my body, how the warmth transfers from the cup to my lips, down my throat, into my stomach, warming up the rest of my body. And I don't meditate. And this catches people off guard who have been following me and know about my work with spirit. But meditation in the traditional sense that has never really worked for me.
I love that honesty, by the way.
Yeah, because like
if meditation doesn't work for you, can we drop some hearts if meditation is not your jam? And that's okay. Okay.
And
so
not to say that
meditating.
yeah, that's all good.
And
No
that's okay.
judgments, you know?
Of
Yeah,
course.
but for me is sitting in that silence with that cup every morning. Like, doesn't matter what happens, that's my anchor. I know that cup is going to happen no matter what. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. But that is my commitment to dedicate whatever. Sometimes it's 30 minutes that I'm sitting there sipping. I love that. I know the right temperature. I know exactly how I like it. I know exactly how I want it to taste. And it's dedicating those minutes to just breathe and
Mm-hmm.
smell and look around me, how the light as the sun is coming up starts making its way through the windows, right? How my dog's behavior starts to change as the day is progressing, just like observing life awakening
Mm-hmm.
as I'm awakening, right? As I'm waking up, as the cacao is kind of starting to stimulate a little bit and open it up my heart space, which is a whole other conversation. But really sitting in that ritual